am Nikita Murthy, Faculty of Information Science and Engineering, Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. Today, we are going to learn about File Transfer Protocol, that is FTP. As we know, we use HTTP to send messages from the web client to the web server. We use file transfer protocol, that is FTP, to send files from one host to another host or one user agent to another user agent. Now, suppose a user wants to send the file to a remote host. Now, what he or she does? She will open the user agent, FTP user agent, that means she will open the host, there she will establish a TCP connection with the server. That means a user agent will establish a TCP connection with the server. After the successful establishment of the TCP connection, the user can send a file to the server. When the file is received from the server, it is sent it to the remote host or to the proper recipient. As you could see in the diagram, a user is interacting through the user agent to a server. That means a user agent is establishing a TCP connection to the server, and after the establishment of the connection, he is sending the file, the required file, to the server, and then the server will send it to the required proper recipient. In the same way, if we want to download a file or to receive a file from the remote host also, there also from the remote host it will be sent it to the server, and the server will send it to our user agent. From the user agent we can view it. Now, let us try to compare HTTP and the FTP protocols. What is the main similarities between them? That means both of them uses a TCP connection for the message transfer. That means both of them runs based on a TCP connection, but both have a major difference also. That means in the HTTP, to send a message or to send the data or to send any control informations like user ID, passwords and all, it uses the same single TCP connection, but FTP uses two different TCP connection. As you could see in the diagram, it uses two TCP connections, one for control information, another for data. The control information TCP connection is used to send the control information like user ID, passwords, any required commands, etc. And the data connection is used to send the data from the sender to the receiver. That is why FTP is called out of band. That means since it uses two TCP connection for the transfer of file or transfer of the message, it is called out of band, and since HTTP uses single TCP connection, it is called in band. That is what I have written here. FTP is out of band because two TCP connections, and HTTP is in band because single or one TCP connection. So, this is the major difference between the FTP and the HTTP. The next topic which we are going to study under the FTP is FTP commands and replies. These are the information or the commands which is exchanged between the server and the client. When the server has something, it will be expecting a reply. So, that means if a client has sent a command or a request, means the server has to reply. So, these are the default common commands that will be used between client and the server. So, first is username. As we know, These are all the commands, hence it will be sent through the TCP control connection. The first common command which can be seen is username. That means, if you want to authenticate ourselves, we may have to provide the user ID and the password. That is why we have to provide the username. That means, we have to use the command user and we have to provide what is our user name. Now, suppose my username is FB, and then we have to provide user FB, and then we have to pass a password also. Then we have to type what is the password which you have set. Next is the list. This is used to list all the files. Here the list command will ask the server to list all the files which are present in the current directory of the recipient. If you are interested in some directory of a server and we want to know what are the files which are stored in a particular directory, then we can use this command list. It will ask the server to list all the files which are saved in a current directory. Then next is retrieve file name. If you want to retrieve or to download a file from a current directory of a recipient, we can use this retrieve file name. The file name which we are interested, it could be anything, let us say text. We want to download a file called text, then we will provide a command called retrieve text from the current directory of the recipient in which we are interested. Next, store file name. If you want to upload a file to the recipient current directory, or if you want to store it in the current directory, we can use this command store file name. So, as you see in the board, these are the common replies that will be sent for a particular command. Now, let us see the first reply, 331. 331 means the username which you have provided is correct. Now, provide the password. 125 means the data connection is already open, transfer starting. That means, suppose if I send a command saying that I want to download a file, I want to retrieve a file, then it will send a reply 125, which means data connection is open, the transfer is going to start anyway. Next is 425. 425 means can't open data connection. Now, suppose if you are establishing a TCP connection to the server and the server is unreachable, then the reply which we get is data connection is not open. Next is 452, that means error writing file. That means if you are modifying a file of, suppose if you are uploading a file, that means if there is some error has occurred or some network issue has happened, we will get an error message called 452, that is there is some error has occurred while writing the file. So, with this we have finished file transfer protocol. The next topic which we are going to see today is electronic mail in the internet. So, we are going to study electronic mail in the internet. As the name itself says, we are going to study how we are going to transfer mail from one host to the other host. Ever since the internet has begun, we are using email to send messages to the recipient. That means, email has been used from a beginning of the internet, and it has gone through so many corrections. It has become very powerful and elaborate these days. Now, we are using Gmail in very frequent process. That means, if you want to send any email to my friend, we use Gmail. That means, that is nothing but an electronic mail which you are going to send a message through the internet. As you could see in the diagram, this is the higher view of the internet mail system. It has three major components, that is user agent, mail server and SMTP. SMTP is nothing but simple mail transfer protocol. We will study about this in the later sections. So, we have three major components, user agent, mail server and the SMTP, which is a protocol. Now, user agent, as me as a user, if I want to send a email to my friend or to some recipient, what I will do? I will type the recipient's email address and then I will type the mail or the message which I want to send, and then I will send it through the internet. What happens there? From the user agent, all the mails get stored in the mail server. That means the mail server, it has to be present in our network. That means the mail server which is present in our network, we are going to send that email to that mail server. Now, suppose it is sending to the other network's mail server. My friend is present in the other network or other country or other state. That means he is present in the other network. What happens? Your mail server will establish a TCP connection to the another mail server of where the recipient is residing. That means it is establishing a TCP connection. After establishing a TCP connection, SMTP protocol will run. The SMTP protocol will push the email from the sender's mail server to the recipient's mail server. So, when the email is received by the recipient mail server, it will be sent it to the proper recipient in that network. So, we saw all the working of user agent, mail server and the SMTP. User agent, here he will create the message and he will send it to his own network's mail server. That mail server will establish a TCP connection to the recipient's mail server. After successful establishment, SMTP protocol will send that email to that recipient mail server. After receiving the email by the recipient's mail server, it will be sent it to the proper recipient. The next topic which you are going to study under the electronic mail in the internet is SMTP. That is So, the next topic which you are going to study is SMTP, that is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is the heart of the internet mail system. It is the heart of the internet mail system. It is much older than the HTTP. As I said earlier, SMTP is used to send the messages from the sender's mail server to the receiver's mail server. Whatever the message that has to be sent in the SMTP must be in a 7-bit ASCII only. Whatever the message that has to be sent through SMTP, it has to be in a 7-bit ASCII. This is the only restrictions it has. Now, let us take an example that Alice is the sender. She wants to send an email to her friend Bob. As you could see in the diagram, here there is an Alice. Through the user agent, she is going to create the email and then she is going to provide Bob's email ID. After providing that, she is going to send that email to the Alice's mail server and then it will be queued in the Alice mail server. After receiving, Alice mail server will detect the message and then he will detect the Bob's email ID and he will detect where the Bob is present, in which network he is present, in which mail server's network he is present. After detecting that, it will establish the TCP connection to Bob's mail server. After establishing the TCP connection through the SMTP protocol, the email is sent from Alice's mail server to Bob's mail server. After receiving by the mail server, it will detect the Bob's email ID and it will be sent to the Bob's user agent or Bob's computer. Now, suppose if the Bob and Alice are world apart or they are halfway across the world. So, does the SMTP uses intermediate mail server? No, it does not use intermediate mail server. That means, Alice's mail server, it will directly establish a dedicated connection to the Bob's mail server. It does not use any intermediate or middle mail server to send the email. So, the major similarity between the SMTP and the HTTP is both of them uses TCP connection to send the messages, and both of them are used to send the messages from the sender to the receiver. Even though it has some similarities, they have three major differences. That means, the first difference which you are going to study is about push and pull protocol. That means, here HTTP is a pull protocol. HTTP is a pull protocol and SMTP is a push protocol. HTTP is a pull protocol, SMTP is push protocol. That means, why do we call HTTP a pull protocol? Means, when a sender has saved a message in a web server, a recipient who wants to receive the message has to get the message from the HTTP. That means, the receiver has to pull the message from the HTTP. But here in the SMTP, what happens? While the sender has sent the email to the mail server after receiving the message, it will only push the email or the message to the receiver. That means, here SMTP pushes the message, here from HTTP we have to pull the message. That is why SMTP is a push protocol, HTTP is a pull protocol. The second difference which you are going to see is 7-bit ASCII. As I said earlier, SMTP, the messages that has to be sent through SMTP, they have to be particularly in 7-bit ASCII. If the message is not in 7-bit ASCII, we have to encode it to the 7-bit. But this restrictions is not there in HTTP. This is the major second difference which you are going to see over here. The third difference is message type. That means, as we know, to send the message, HTTP uses request message format and response message format, but in the SM nothing as such format, everything is put it in a single message and then it will be sent. So, these are the three major differences which you can see with the SMTP and HTTP. The next topic which you are going to study under electronic mail is mail message format. That means, what is the message format of the email which you are going to send. Here also there will be data and the header. There will be header and the data. So, here email contains a header and the data or the message which you are going to send. Both of them are separated by a space or a blank line. So, why do we need to have a header? Means we should know from whom we are sending and whom we should send. These information we should have. That is why this is the typical header example. Here we have header line called from, header line to and the header line subject. So, these are the common header lines which we see in a email. There are so many header lines also. As of now, we will concentrate on this. So, why we need to have a from? It will say from whom we are sending the email. So, here we are sending the email from alice@creeps.fr. So, this is the email ID of a sender, and whom we are sending? Bob@hamburger.edu. So, this is the email ID of the receiver, and why we need to have a subject means to know the purpose or the meaning of the message which is included in the email. So, for this we should have 3 basic header lines in a message format of a SMTP email. Next topic is mail access protocol. Now, suppose Alice is sent, as you could see in the diagram, Alice wants to send a email to her friend Bob, but we do not know whether Bob user agent is reachable or not. Is it in a correct network, or is it in a correct sync to receive the message or not. But if we use just a SMTP connection between both the mail server, it will not be enough. That is why what we do, from the Alice's user agent, we use again SMTP protocol only to push the message from Alice's user agent to Alice's mail server. So, after it has been received, it will try to connect it with the Bob's mail server. Let us say for every 30 minutes it will start connecting with the, try to establish the connection with the Bob's mail server. Once the connection is established, Alice's mail server will send the email to Bob's mail server. And then here we do not need to use the SMTP protocol, we can use other protocols to send the email from Bob's mail server to Bob user agent. So, as I said, we do not need to use the SMTP to send the email from Bob's mail server to Bob user agent. What are the other alternatives we can use is, the first one is POP3, other one is IMAP. That means first one is POP3, that is Post Office Protocol version 3. The second one is Internet Mail Access Protocol. So, these are the alternatives which you can use other than SMTP to send the email from Bob's mail server to the Bob's user agent. So, let us study in brief POP3, that is Post Office Protocol version 3. This protocol is very simple and it is not very complex or complicated to use. How it works means, POP3 will establish a TCP connection with the client. Now, after establishing the TCP connection, to establish a TCP connection, here it uses port 1110. To establish a TCP connection, it uses port number 1110. After establishing the TCP connection, it will try to push the email from the server to the client, that means from the mail server to the user agent. To push that, it uses 3 phases. What are those 3 phases? The first one is So, these are the 3 phases which the POP3 uses. The first one is authorization, second one is transaction, and the third one is update. What happens in the first phase means, here the recipient has to be authorized. That means, you have to know whether he is the proper recipient or not. How we are going to authorize? Using the user ID and the password. After verifying the user ID and password, we will know whether we are sending it to the proper recipient or not. This is what happens in the first phase. In the second phase, what happens? It will try to push the email to the recipient. While pushing this or while accessing this email, the user agent can also mark the messages which he wants to delete. In the third phase, that is update, what happens? After it receives the email, what it does? It will try to quit the connection. It will try to quit the connection using the quit command, and then whatever the messages that has been marked to delete by the user agent will also be deleted in this phase. So, this is what about the POP3. The next which we are going to study is IMAP, that is Internet Mail Access Protocol. The main disadvantages in the POP3 is that it does not divide the messages into directory of our interest. It will just dump it into the single directory or to the remote directory. If we want to receive the messages in a particular directories, like whatever the message that has been received, we have to be received in the inbox directory, or if you want to put all the spam in emails to the spam directory, if you want to put all the deleted emails to the trash directory, these things will not be provided in the POP3, but it will be provided in the IMAP protocol. This is not simple as POP3, it is a bit complex, but it has more features than POP3. What it does, whenever the mail is received, it will try to push the message into the proper directory. Suppose if the message is received and it is not a spam, it will be sent it to the inbox directory. Now, suppose if the email that has been received it is spam, it will be sent it to the spam directory, or it can, if it is a promotion email, it will be sent it to the promotion directory. That is how, that means IMAP will try to push the messages in a local system in a particular directory of our interest. So, this is very useful while we are using, as you could see in the Gmail which you are using today, it is also uses the same features of IMAP. This is all about the IMAP protocol. With this, the SMTP protocol subject is finished. Thank you.